So this stream is going to be all about screaming our frustrations with COVID into the void, and that's me. So, welcome. If you're watching this later on YouTube and you're catching it in the comments, feel free to put down any frustrations you have with how things are going. Um, Believing in COVID, not believing in COVID, however you come to this video or this channel, I want to hear about it. This is the place to, like, you scream in and you feel better afterwards. That's what I'm here for. You scream into me. I have my own issues um with COVID and the response to COVID. And we are going to be going through several anti-masker and anti-vaxxer people today, to try to point out some of the narratives that have been developed about COVID and the vaccine and everything, and try to, yeah, we're going to go over the propaganda. Exactly, Marchan. We're going to talk about all of these ideas, and I want to put in point blank, I am not going to be unbiased about this. I'm not going to be like, okay, let's look at that idea, let's analyze and see if that's a fair thing, because at this point, that's just not worth it. It's been 2 years since COVID hit the States. It's been 2 years since we have had to deal with COVID scares. I know we didn't go into lockdowns until March, but still. COVID destroyed my life in many ways. I want to talk about this first so that we all are on the same page of where I'm coming from, and we all understand why this is so personal to me. So, 2019, I was working at a camp in California. The camp brought in middle schoolers from different schools all into one camp, mixed them up between the schools, and took them out into the woods. And I was a naturalist who took kids out into the woods. This job was wonderful. It paid just enough that I could, like, save up money and also get the free welfare health insurance from the state of California. And it also gave me free housing. Well, essentially free. They took it out of my paycheck, but I never saw it, so it's an invisible cost. Basically free. That being said, when COVID hit, the way our camp worked was not COVID friendly at all. So we struggled for a few months trying to find some ways to provide income, accepting any state help we could. Back when those small business loans were going out, we took some of those. We also helped our parent company by providing call center services for illegal immigrants so that they could be given some COVID relief through the state. We did whatever we could for a few months, but eventually our season ended. And when the season ended, it was summer. I was always seasonally homeless in the summer, and I was okay with that. Because back then, oh, I'll get to that, Aragon. Hang on. Back then, I would basically go on a road trip across America for those 3 months, June, July, August, and I would sleep at rest stops, set up a tent. If I needed to, I would sleep in my car. I would visit friends across the country and sleep with them for like a few months, like on their couch or in a spare bed, You know what I mean. So yeah, I would just kind of have fun couch surfing for a few months, seeing the country. It was a beautiful time. I loved it. Collected unemployment and used my savings, and would come back, and by the time I came back, usually my savings would be spent, but I would have enough unemployment income that I would be able to survive until I was able to save up enough again from working at camp. July of 2020, I lost my job. The camp shut down because of COVID. I was in Kentucky at the time. I had only taken enough supplies for like the summer trip. I was expecting to go back in September and help the camp with whatever they needed to make ends meet. It hadn't really hit me how bad coronavirus was because I was listening to the radio and I didn't like I wasn't listening to the news all the time. And while I was wearing a mask constantly, I didn't um, I didn't really see the whole impact because I was always out in the country rather than in the cities. So I am suddenly permanently homeless rather than seasonally. I have nowhere to go. I have to go find a place to live. I was able to find a place in New York with a couple friends that they let me have basically a spare room and a mattress on the ground. And there wasn't really a door or a wall between my room and the rest of the house. So all there was a curtain, and that was it. A curtain that I basically taped to the door frame, um, because that's all I had. I had to drive back across the country after that to pick up the rest of my stuff and then haul it back again from California to New York. Fun fact, it only takes 3.5 days to cross the entire country. So you can go there and back again in a week if you want to, driving like 14 to 16 hours a day. You know, it's possible. Um, so there I am in New York then. I have no job. I lost my wallet, so I didn't have access to unemployment. I didn't have access to my driver's license, and I couldn't go to the DMV to get any of this stuff back because of COVID. The lines were like 3 to 6 months long. So I pick up random odd jobs here and there. I helped with election counting one year and sorting ballots. I helped working at a kennel on the weekends. I did whatever I could to make money so that I could contribute something to my friends who were sticking their necks out for me. And this was not a fun living situation. It is exhausting not having a wall, not having that kind of privacy, constantly knowing that where you live is subject to the whims of other people. And while I did my best to ingratiate myself, hence the paying of rent, I never felt like my place was secure. And it wasn't my friend's fault. It was just the circumstances of me coming to New York. I did finally manage to secure a somewhat permanent job working as basically a janitor at hospitals and other medical facilities. And I held that job from January of 2021 to December 2021. I don't want to get into the reasons for me leaving. That's irrelevant to this conversation. But that job at least helped me have money and some stability. I have since moved into my own apartment. I have since gotten my license and social security card back. I have been able to apply for New York licenses. I have gotten a new car and paid for registration. It's expensive being poor, by the way. There are fees that you have to constantly pay, and if you don't pay them and get caught, the fees become greater. And it just is a even stronger drain on your money. And then we fast forward to Christmas time of 2021, so just a few weeks ago. Things are calming down. There is the Omicron starting to pop up, but it hasn't really like peaked yet. It hasn't gone crazy. So I went down to visit my grandparents, who are both in their 90s, and um, and they are very frail. They went from like some of the strongest, cheeriest people I knew to when I visited them this time. One was basically senile, and the other was uh, using a wheelchair and needed help to use the bathroom. And they had help. They had live-in nurses with them, and they had an uncle who was there with them, which was helpful. But it's more people around. I was staying with them for just a few days, and I was able to like help out where I could, and they didn't really need much because they're too tired for much interaction. But it was fun being there with them. I was going after that to visit some friends further south and spend a week with them as like a final celebration of the holidays slash celebration of getting back on my feet, leaving my old job, and starting a new part of my life, which was door dashing and Twitch streaming, which we're doing now. Um, but then one of my friend's roommates caught COVID, so I couldn't go, and I was terrified for my friends. So I don't go. I go back home. I get a 24-hour bug, and I find out that my grandparents, both of them, my uncle, and my little brother who visited my grandparents for Christmas along with my mom and dad, all of them caught COVID. I don't know if my parents did, but my grandparents, my uncle, and my brother did. So I'm terrified. I'm looking around. I make an appointment for a test. This was last week. I go to a test. I go to the testing site. I sit down, and that's when they tell me the test is not free. It costs $188 for this test because I am too poor to afford insurance. I can't take a test because I can't afford it. The only free testing sites, the closest appointment is a week away. It's already been a week and a half. At that point, what's the point? COVID only lasts. I would know if I had COVID at that point because there's that 2 week window where there's no symptoms. I'd also been thinking about that 24-hour bug and thinking, what if that was COVID? What if I've already had it and I was the one who spread it? I still don't know the answer. I went across the entire city that day, visited every CVS, visited every Walgreens. I could not find a single COVID test anywhere in this entire city. So not only could I not get the test I had the appointment for because I was priced out of it, I couldn't get a free test because there were too many people trying to get these tests that it was creating a line. And I couldn't go and buy a home test because they weren't available in the entire city. And while, yes, part of that has to do with the U.S. government and the system that we have and medical insurance and how it's treated as a privilege, not a right, it's also due to the people who deny COVID's existence. It's because of people who refuse to wear masks that I was put in this situation. It's because of the people who refuse to get vaccinated. The nurses who spread this misinformation. The pastors who spread this. The drivers. Everyone who says that COVID doesn't exist or that it's a hoax or that the vaccine isn't tested. All of that. It's their fault that I was in this situation. It's their fault that so many people in this country are in that situation. It's not fair to us that we have to put our health at risk so that these people can sit there and look smugly at the camera and say, well, I'm not going to get it because my rights, my freedoms. It's not okay. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And if I get mad when we're reviewing this, now you know why. Because this shit has gone on for long enough. I've been incredibly patient. I have avoided COVID scare after COVID scare. I have been on the streets at the height of COVID. I have been vaccinated and boosted and done everything right. And it's not enough. And I'm so tired. I'm so tired of this. I'm going to catch up on chat. And then we're going to get into this. And if anyone has any de-stressing videos, like short, less than 5-minute videos that we can watch in between going over these bits, put them in chat as we go, and I'll try to get to them. We will need that today. Let's see what I missed. Marchand, it's so propagandized. Exactly. We're going to go through some of that propaganda today. I hope naturalist, Aragon, I hope that naturalist doesn't mean the same thing to other people as does to me. It means nudist here. No, naturalist in the context that I'm talking about, it means someone who deals with nature, someone who has learned about nature and is usually an educator for others. So my job was to take these kids into the forests of California and show them the nature and teach them about it, and also teach them how to work with each other. It wasn't anything to do with nudism. It was genuinely a nature-based job, which was absolutely wonderful. As someone who, Aragon also says, as someone who quickly feels like a burden to others, I can't imagine how awful that must have been. Yeah, living with my friends, I was lucky because the people I was living with were genuinely kind and sweet people. And I know other people who were in similar situations who did not have that luxury, who had to move in with their parents or other unsafe situations. I did feel bad, but that wasn't the main... It wasn't my friends who were making me feel like a burden. It was my own stress about contributing to the household. Because I did not have a regular job at the time, and I was just picking up odds and ends and promising as I could go. And that was it. Yeah, Marchan, you would know that shit was real hard, and I'm glad we've both made it through. It's been quite a journey. Aragon, nurses generally don't spread anti-vax information. If anything, they're really likely to get angry if they hear any. You would be surprised, Aragon. You would be surprised. Here in America, nurses are one of the most frustrating anti-vax groups in this country, because the education for nurses is not as extensive as it is for doctors. So they will have a basic understanding of medical information, but not a full understanding of medical information. And so when they read about the vaccine stuff, it's very easy for them to get led astray with false statistics or misleading statistics about the vaccine, because they think they understand it better, and they are more willing to go along with narratives that have that veneer of authenticity rather than actually digging in and understanding the science behind what these claims are saying. A lot of the nurses at the hospitals that I went to, on their breaks, I'd be listening in because like I'm like wiping the table down or something. I was horrified at times, even in the OR. Some of the nurses in the OR, operating room, would be spouting, "Oh, I'm not gonna get it. It hasn't been tested yet," or "I'm not gonna get it. The side effects are too severe. I don't want something that's I don't want a cure that's worse than the disease." And that line I heard in different phrasing so often from nurses. Nurses are terribly gullible, unfortunately, because it's also like the basic girls who go into nursing. I hate to use that stereotype. It's not fair, but there is some accuracy to it. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. This is a stereotype. This is not like every nurse ever, but a lot of nurses are those basic girls from high school who go into nursing because they think it's a good, solid paying job, but don't necessarily aren't necessarily there for like because they're passionate about medicine. And so they will just pick up on whatever narratives are around them. These are also they're the same type of people who pick up on MLMs, and the same type of people who pick up on like probably not like alternative medicine, but the live, laugh, love crowd, the wine moms, who the Karens. The Karens are also often nurses, and it's frustrating to deal with them because they have some expertise in what they're talking about, but not enough to like. But they counteract their own expertise with the narratives that they are feeding themselves. Marchan, been there. I just wish I feel like I could. Didn't feel like I could lose my home at any day at any time. Marchan, from what I've seen from your what you do, you put in so much work to keep what you have, and you you have become reliable. And the fact that you have gone from where you were to having a roof over your head to being the main provider for you and um, for you and your partner in keeping this housing situation stable is incredible. So I while I do acknowledge that insecurity, I want to say that insecurity is will lessen in time as you adjust to being stable. Between all of the things that you do, you're able to consistently pull the money together, and that's an incredible thing that you do. So don't discount the work you've put in. You've done a good job at keeping what you've earned. Aragon, I can't imagine how a person working in a hospital seeing this crap every day can be a COVID denier. It wasn't the nurses in the COVID wings that were saying this. Any nurse who worked in the COVID wings was fully on board. It was the nurses who worked in the operating room, the nurses who worked in the eating disorder wing, the nurses who worked in the physical therapy wing. Those nurses were the ones who didn't understand the COVID science because that wasn't what they were focused on. So they didn't know anything more than a common layperson looking into it with a special interest, you know? Like someone who understands the language, but not necessarily the process. Then again, people are under no obligation to make sense. You're right, Aragon. People are under no obligation to make sense. And it's a problem because people will have contradictory ideas and then never think about them and never think about why they contradict and how you can tell what's worth keeping and what's not. They will just hold both positions and never acknowledge that you cannot hold both positions at the same time. Especially with religion. Religion is a big band-aid to stick ideas that don't fit together. And you're welcome, Marchan. I'm always happy to help friends. and reassure them. So, gonna take a break real quick, and then we'll get back to going over the video. So if you're watching from YouTube, thank you for watching this. Keep watching for more uploads. Feel free to subscribe, like this video, comment. Let me know what you think. This has been The Void. Bye.